Good morning, Mobile, and all of our friends across the Gulf Coast. We are so excited that you've joined us for another Operation Echo Stop Live podcast here. I'm Kevin with my good friend Curtis.
Good morning.
Curtis, I got a surprise for you.
What's the surprise, Kevin?
We are having a really special episode for you today, and what I'm most excited about is this is not just going to be one that is filled with amazing content, but I believe there's going to be a heartfelt message learned from this conversation that we're having out here today. And so before I go on any further, I want to introduce some of our guests, or rather let you introduce yourselves. So if we could just start down at the end, just tell us who you are, and we'll go from there.
My name is Devonna Tinsley.
I'm Naja Hill.
Cassandra Rogers.
Awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. We've talked before, or you've talked with Curtis here, and so we're really focused on actually doing something, because we've talked about a lot of problems that have happened in the community. And you all have a story, and that story represents something powerful, and we want to share what's happening so that others can see that there has to be a better way.
I want to add this. I mean, we really, really appreciate you all taking the time out of your day to come out and to share, and to and in some cases actually have to re-experience some of the things that you've had to experience, but we want to thank you for your efforts in trying to make sure others can learn from it.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's
Yes, thank you guys, because sometimes we do hard things,
yes.
but there's value in that. And so the legacy is using that to help others so we don't have to sit in this same situation, right?
Right.
So we appreciate it. So you don't need to hear me talk. This is your show. I'm just going to ask some questions and really kind of just get a conversation going. But what I really want is for y'all to have the freedom to share what life is like and how it's been impactful because of violent crime. So I'm going to let you start there. Ms. Naja, if you want to start and kind of just lead us off, tell us about what it means to be sitting here right now.
It's an honor to be sitting here right now, because we all have different stories that are messages that need to be heard. We're fighting for our youth at this time, and it's important that we get this message as far as we can possibly get it. A mother should never have to bury their children, and we all have had to do that. And so we're here to send that message that it's time for all of the mothers to open their eyes. It's time to look around. It's time to grab hold to each other, because the violence is rising. We're losing our children. I should never had to bury a child that was 16 years old. It destroys lives. It destroys families. It destroys communities, and not all of the time bad children are leaving here. Some of these kids are good kids. My son was a good kid. He played in this park every day, He wanted to be great. And I think it's important to know that you have to have insurance on these kids. I wasn't prepared to lose my son, and so I encourage parents to get insurance on your children. I encourage parents to know what's going on in your household. It's very important. It's time to get alert and look around and see what's going on with our kids.
And Naja, it was intentional for us to be out here at this park, because this park represents community, and we've got dozens of parks in our city, but we wanted to highlight this particular park because this is a place where kids come to play. This is where they come and engage one another to develop pro-social behavior, to learn how to live with one another. And oftentimes it's also the place where a lot of people find themselves in conflict with one another, and sometimes surprisingly caught up in the crossfire of others who have ill intent.
And if I could just go to you on the end there and just tell us a little bit about why you're here, and maybe give us a perspective, because a lot of times, we see an incident and we feel like it's isolated, but when a child is lost, not only the family suffers, but the whole community is suffering, because it literally changes the trajectory of where we're supposed to be going, right? We're supposed to be moving in this positive direction, and now all of a sudden we've gone sideways. And so I'll let you kind of, just express yourself just a little bit in that situation.
Yes, I'm honored to be here also, and it's bringing back memories because my daughter, she also attended John L. LaFleur High School. She played park ball here, it was for another park, but she came here and played softball, and it's like you said, we're just reliving it. And losing a child, it is so hurtful, and like you say, it's a no-win situation. I mean, even the victim as well as the attacker, both, it's an impact. The attacker, his family, they have to lose someone also in the prison system, and the victim, her family, we had to bury my daughter, and we just want to sound the alarm and just say enough is enough. It just don't make any sense for all the kids losing their lives, young and old. I mean, why can't we just resolve issues and situations with no violence?
I'm sorry, Kevin.
Go ahead.
Let's ask the question of Ms. Rogers and knowing or saying enough is enough. How do we have that dialogue?
We need to get everybody involved in the community, parents, schools. When I lost Darius, I didn't lose only Darius. I lost 3 family members. I lost a stepson first and a cousin second, and then 10 months later, I lost Darius. So on an impact with my family, we never recuperate from losing the first one. We had back-to-back violence. Stephen, he was gunned down in broad daylight. One of his friends, they got into it, and Cindy, she was a domestic violence. She was gunned down at her work. The kid's father broke in and one of the facility where she was working at and gunned down her. And then 10 months later, Darius was gunned down. So it takes a hold. It really takes a hold of all of us. It's been 11 years for Darius. I still have my days. We out here so other mothers won't have to walk in our shoes.
So let's talk about that for a second, because I think when Curtis and I first started talking about this idea, and some others on the team were really helping us, the thing I think that really struck me was, and I tell people all this all the time, like when it's steepest and it's hardest, that's when you climb the most, right? Because people always want to climb when it's an even plateau, but like how do you climb in a difficult situation? And here I see women mothers who are in these situations, and yet together you've formed a coalition of sorts, right? There's a group together, and so you're taking the story, the pain, you're using that, and you are literally climbing when it's hardest. So how do you see this? Tell us a little bit about the organization. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing and how your goals are being set to really make your mark within the community.
Our organization, the name is Mothers Involved Against Gun Violence. It's an organization that is backed by the city of Mobile and YVP, Youth Prevention. And we all wanted to come together to do something for these mothers, because in the event of losing your children, you need to surround yourself. Healing is surrounding yourself with people that feel just like you. And so we have a lot of events planned. We plan to get involved. And that's for the meaning of involved in the Mothers Involved, because we're planning to bring mothers together. It doesn't matter the race, the color, the size, where you from, what city you from. We're encouraging our mothers to come aboard, to stand, because our voice matters. And I feel like if you can get these mothers together, what child doesn't love their mother?
Yeah, I mean, and Curtis, I mean, we talked a couple of episodes ago, and I know we've got some more conversation coming in the future about sort of not just the 4 corners of EchoStop, but sort of the 4 corners of community, which we've identified, we believe to be true, and that is faith, family, government has to play a part, right? The police department has to be active, not just on the enforcement side, but like how do we prevent ever getting from the situation? That's our most important job. And then the educational system, right? There's a role there. Where do the kids spend most of their time during the day? And so there's an influence there, almost an opportunity there. And we work closely with them. So on these four corners, you know, when you see this group of powerful women who are just going to do something instead of just sitting back and saying something, how do you see that impacting those four corners?
I see it impacting those four corners because the ladies that are involved in this coalition, this effort to bring awareness to the trauma that they have faced as well as others, have the opportunity to engage our churches. They have the opportunity to engage our schools. They have the opportunity to engage fellow members of the community that they live near by, and they also have the opportunity to bring the awareness to city government to help us understand that it truly does take all of us, not just the families impacted by the trauma, but the entire community, and to make sure that all and everyone understands that violence does not discriminate. It is not isolated. It's not in a particular zip code. It's everywhere. It has the potential to metastasize anywhere in our city. And you all are living witnesses to what it does.
Yeah, and so, and what he said is 100%, 1,000% correct. And I think sometimes you see something on TV or you hear something, but it doesn't directly affect you. And so it's important, but at the same time, you don't really do as much as maybe you can. And we tell people all the time, you know, they say, see something, say something. I've been preaching since we've started this podcast with Curtis, is like, see something, say something, do something.
Absolutely.
Like there has to be action. And you guys are representing action. So how does this action, how do you feel this helps you kind of heal through the trauma of each of your all's incidents?
Well, for me, my daughter was murdered July the 4th, 2014. And I hit the ground running because I didn't want her death to be in vain. And I wanted to save another family from feeling the heartache and pain that I felt. And plus she left 2 kids. She was murdered due to domestic violence. And I just really just wanted to grasp my community, like you say, not based on color, just to let them know the seriousness of domestic violence, of violence, period. And just to see our face, to know it's real. You know, it's not just something that people are just talking about. We are living witnesses to the violence and the impact that it has on a family.
I mean, I think you've got some great words. What would you say to that same question, you know, as far as healing through the trauma through this activities?
Well, see, we don't have our loved ones anymore. I stand out to be a voice for Darius, for Stephen, and for Cindy. They don't have voices anymore. And all 3 of mine, they left kids behind. So these kids won't answer that I don't have. But I have to do the best I can as an auntie, as a mother, and as a grandmother. I have to do the best I can. So I'm here so we could be a voice for the one that don't have a voice anymore. Our kids don't have voices. They can't speak for themselves. We as mother who carried them 9 months, we have to be their voices. When God gave me Darius, I treasure that. He was everything to me. So when he was taken from me, it took a toll on me. I became ill. I got very ill. I became a diabetic because I never witnessed losing a child that God gave me. You know, carry somebody 9 months. That's everything. You know, I made sure I ate right. I made sure I didn't like milk. I drank milk, make sure they had all the nutrition bones. He needed it. And when that day came, it was mind-blowing that, you know, somebody didn't think my baby was worth living, was worthy. You know, and and we want other kids, other mothers to cherish. Please, every day you got, cherish what you got. We never know what the day might bring. We had no idea that we were gonna get a phone call that day that our kids gonna be taken away from us. We had no idea.
And Ms. Hill, I mean, just listening to the other ladies talk, and you said something that was really powerful, which, you know, is that these are gifts from God. And so when you factor that in and you're going through this situation, it also helps that other people see the same value in those gifts, right? Whether it's their child or someone else's child, it's a gift nonetheless, right? So how do you think that helps inspire you or motivate you to reach out to as many people as you can so that we can prevent this type of needless, wasteful violence from happening?
It encourages me every day. It motivates me every day because we are the voices for those kids. And really, I didn't know how popular my son was until I lost him. I knew the son that I had at home, but I didn't know that the son that I had in the community, he was a good child. And I just want parents to understand that it doesn't always have to be a child that has issues. It can be a child that just is in the wrong place at the wrong time. My son was at this park where we're sitting. Played football, basketball, ran track. A child at heart. I raised a child that wanted to jump rope, jump on the trampoline. So I want to put the message out there to pay attention to what's going on, because somewhere I must have missed something. I had to miss something. You do your best to raise your children, but when they're out of our household, we don't know what they're doing. We don't know who they're around, So it's important to pay attention to our children. And it's important to know that you can very well be one of us. God has no favors.
You said something earlier. You said that you could have missed something. And I think that as parents, we often lose sight of that.
Yes.
We lose sight that we can't be everywhere and we can't be all things, although we try our very best to be, and that we do need help, we do need support, and we can't be too proudful not to ask for that help and ask for it before it gets to a point where you need it most. So, those are things that I think you all bring to this whole cause of bringing awareness, trying to educate families on what trauma looks like, and to bring educational pieces to the conversation that will help parents actually cope with the mental strain that creates some physical issues that happen as a result of not being able to process this horrible trauma that you're experiencing.
So as we kind of wind down this particular episode of our podcast, I wanted to ask you something. I know that this group is working closely with the Youth Violence Prevention.
Yes.
Youth Violence Prevention Coordinator, and the City of Mobile is doing everything it can at this point to try and prevent this from happening, because this is an amazing city, and
Yes.
we're not seizing every opportunity to be as great as we can because we're missing some things. And it's not just parents that might be doing it, but the city might be missing too. And so how do you see utilizing youth violence prevention in conjunction with the city and with this group to really maximize the story so that we can reach the largest audience, not just to say that we did, but so that we can impact the most people and help prevent this situation from reoccurring?
Youth violence prevention is a rally cry for our city. It's a rally cry that echoes to every neighborhood in our city to let people know that there are people in crisis, there are people in pain, there are people who are impacted by constant trauma, constant gunfire, understanding that they don't have to be in harm's way of the gunfire to be in harm's way of the gunfire. They can be at home, minding their own business, and be impacted by the trauma of gunfire. That's important for everyone to know. And I think that what you all are doing right now, and why the city is grateful for it, is because it's helping us bring awareness in a way in which the city can't always do, because people see government as being government. They don't see it as being people. But people are government. People make up government. You all are part of that system. And it's important that we all see one another through those different lenses that we see through, but to understand that we are more alike than we are different.
And I think as we bring this to a close, first I want to thank you all for just sharing your time. I know there's a lot of other places you could be, and we're glad that you just chose to be here for a few minutes with us. I also want to say, adding on to what Curtis just said, government is people, but so is the community. And what I mean by that is the community is a makeup of people who each have individual stories. Yes. And so we need to spend just a little bit more time learning some of these individual stories so that we can better understand what it is to move forward. We all want to move forward, right? And we say that, but to really do that, we have to understand. So thank you for just sharing your stories with us. We'll continue part of this conversation in another episode, but I really wanted to thank you, and I'm fairly confident we'll have you back again whenever your schedules permit, because there's a lot more to talk about. But before we signed off today, I just want to remind all of our viewers that we have an anonymous tip line. It's a We Tip anonymous tip line. There is a phone number you can text, you can call. We received hundreds of tips in the last few months, actionable things. What's great about this is you can participate in the solution. It's anonymous, but we just need to know if we can prevent something. It's not about pointing a finger, it's about stopping the violence. And that number is 844-251-0644, 844-251-0644. You can reach out to us at that number. You can send an anonymous tip. If you use it however you can. If you need some sort of service or whatever, we'll send that information to the right person. But we'd also encourage you to participate in our Echo Stop Live podcast every Friday at 8:30 in the morning. This is an opportunity to hear voices. This is an opportunity to tell a story. This is a one-of-a-kind opportunity where we can have a podcast from within the seat of government with the people and actually solve a problem and not just talk about it. We want to do something about it. And so we thank you for joining us. Curtis, I don't know if you've got any final words you want to say here before we sign off?
The only last words I would say is thank you, ladies. Thank you for taking time out of your day and to share your stories. There's much more to your story than what we were able to share in this small time. And we want others to hear more of it as well. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And we'll see you next Friday at 8:30 in the morning. And thanks for joining us on the Echo Stop Live podcast. Have a great weekend.